My name is Rennie Cantine, and I'm from Woodstock, New York. My kid's the 11th generation in Ulster County. 1686, Moses came to Kingston. And my great-grandfather started the Cantine paper mill, and he then donated the land for the Cantine field. So one of my great honors was hitting a double in the All-Star game, Little League All-Star game, rounding the second base, looking over and seeing Overlook and saying, this is pretty cool. I like this. And then many years later, I was asked to play, my band was asked to play at the fireworks in Saugerties. And so we did that for like 5-7 years. And then Paul Luke steps aside and asked me to headline. So I got to headline at Cantine Field a couple of years. It was a great honor. And, you know, I love this. I love Saugerties. I love Woodstock, Ulster County, the mountains. So it's just, it's nice to be here talking with Gus. I found out about Woodstock 94 because Michael Lang called me. I was living in California with Gabriel Butterfield, and we were in a band, Paul's son. And so he asked us to come back and play. It was probably in 92. So we threw everything in a pickup truck, our drums and everything. We drove back, settled into my family's house in Birdcliff in Woodstock, and rehearsed for a year. Jimmy Eppert, Ted Orr, Junior Ellis kind of was along with us. And then we were trying to get some of the guys from the original concert, maybe Buzzy Featon, Brother Gene. So that was really something I was looking forward to. And it kind of didn't come to pass like we thought it was going to come to pass. Couldn't quite get all the personnel together. They were scattered all over Europe and stuff. So Michael said, listen, I know you guys do a duet thing, just me and Gabe. He says, I'll get you on a Sunday afternoon. And so that's how I found out about it. And, you know, Michael, I've known most of my life, and he was good friends with my father. So he really looked out after me. He adored Paul Butterfield. So he really took after Gabe, and we had dinners. I did some carpentry for him before the show, and, you know, I helped out with the show. When I was getting ready to play at Woodstock 94, my friend Conan, Conan is a legendary roadie. He did Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, all the bands, you know. He was just a legendary roadie, and he was in charge of all the steel climbers that built Woodstock and tore it down. So I ended up getting to fall in with the steel climbers. And so I was there 3 weeks beforehand, and we built the stage. And I was, you know, trained when I was a kid in technical rock climbing, and so it was just a thrill to be 80 feet up, looking down, and building the place and working with all these incredible guys. So it was really fun. So I was there. I just wanted to be there as much as I could, even though I knew I was going to be there that weekend. And then that weekend, we had access to the Gibson crew. They brought in 30, 40 guitars and a bunch of amps, and they supplied some back lines. And so Gabe and I were over during the concert itself. We were over there just practicing, getting ready for a moment on Sunday, which was, you know, just a great thing. I think the show itself was one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. You know, it had so many of my favorite bands. You know, Dylan played great, but other bands like King's X, oh man, just band after band after band. And, you know, because I could climb up in the rafters, I would be up in the rafters and kind of have the best view around. I remember Green Day, he was a trip. The leader of that band was just always egging everybody on, and somebody threw some dirt up on stage, and he was like, is that all you got? And it turned out to be, you got to see the film. It just, hundreds and hundreds of big bombs coming in, and it would hit somebody in the band, and they would just start laughing, you know. And these kids were like so into it. You know, Green Day had such a following that these younger kids would try and get through security, and they beefed up security big time, but they would run and they would jump on him, And he'd be walking around stage singing with some kids hanging off his back, like he didn't care. And then I remember the bass player slid his bass across the stage and he started running after his bass, and security thought he was a fan, and they tackled him like a football player. But during the end of that show on Sunday, Janie Hendricks Wright went up and did a poem during Carlos Santana's set. And it was wonderful. I love Santana. It's one of my favorites. And so after that show, my set was over. I got a lunch break, and Janie just turned out to be in front of me at the mess tent. There was probably 100 people in line, and her husband and 2 kids were in line. And Larry, who I knew was one of the chefs, he went to grab, she was a vegetarian, and she said that, and he went to grab her broccoli with a meat spoon. And so I'm like, Larry. He says, dude, look at this line. I said, this is Jimi Hendrix. Why don't you, Janie, this is Larry. And so at that point, she was like, thank you so much. That was so sweet of you. Why don't you have dinner with us? So I had dinner with her and her band, her husband and kids, and Dylan's band. She was kind of upset that they weren't doing a real tribute to Hendrix in the morning. And I told her, I said, I can do that. And she's like, how? I said, I'll just ask Michael if I can play the national anthem for a little bit. Because I knew I had the Gibson equipment and I was ready to roll. So I went and asked Michael if I could do the national anthem on the North Stage on Monday morning, and he says, great idea, I love it. And so I went down to the Gibson Winnebago, and they had a big Winnebago. They're all packed up, 4 guys, all the equipment, and they knew that it was over, and they said to me, I knocked on the door and they said, Rennie, it's over, we're going home, and that's it. And so I'm like, door slams in my face, I knock on the door again. Some other guy comes, bigger guy. And he says, Cantine, you gotta go home, it's over. I said, listen, I gotta play the national anthem, I need a guitar and amp so I can honor Jimmy and Janie and Michael and all these people. So he's like, no, he says, if you don't get out of here right now, I'm gonna come down and kick your ass. And I'm like, Robert, you can come down and try, but just bring a guitar and an amp. And so he finally just laughs and gets his golf cart, and we drive down, and I got to play for 20 minutes, played my ass off, and it was like definitely the biggest honor of my life.